Welcome into Locked On Phillies. In today's episode, we have a very special crossover episode. The guys from Cespedes Family Barbecue, and you can check out their work on the Baseball Barbecast podcast. Oh my goodness, these guys are awesome. Jake Mintz, Jordan Shusterman. You're going to want to hear everything they have to say. We've got it for you today on Locked On Phillies.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's Jase medical.com. All right, folks, it's a very special crossover episode of Locked On Phillies, and with me, I got the guys from Cespedes Family Barbecue, the duo that hosts the Baseball Barbecast. You got releases every Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning on all your major podcast networks. We got Jake, we got Jordan. It's Jake Mintz and Jordan Shusterman, and you've seen, if you don't know them, you should, and if you do, you've definitely seen their content. Cespedes Family Barbecues all over the web. Love these guys, been a fan for a long time. And I need your guys' help today. I appreciate you guys taking the time because the Phillies have had one of the weirder baseball seasons of any team in the majors this year. And I've got to figure out, we're so in the echo chamber here in Philly of like what's normal and what's not, that I need the outside perspective from some guys who know ball like yourself. So
that's a great way to think about it. You know, I live up here in New York, but I go down and watch the Phillies probably once or twice a month. I was with them all of last October for the entire run. And every time I hop into town, there's something else weird going on. So I feel like I have my finger on the pulse from an outsider's perspective.
Yeah, because you're New York based, right?
Yeah, I live in the city. I'm from D.C., and so I'm a great neutral.
Gotcha. And Jordan, you're out in middle America, right?
Yes, sir. I am in rural Indiana. We just came off doing Locked on Reds, so that was more my speed. Obviously, I watch my fair share of Phillies baseball. And honestly, like every team, this has been a great exercise today because we've gone on a bunch of these shows and everyone assumes their team is having the strangest season. Baseball is a weird sport and it's a long season. And so you got all kinds of time to bounce back and forth. I honestly feel like the Phillies are kind of where I expected them to be. So
that's the thing, dude.
Like yeah. And not just in the standings, but just like they kind of look like the team I expected. They're not to saying that they're not interesting. I mean, there's plenty to talk about.
No, for sure.
But like this is not a team that has like shocked me in any sort of great way. There have been some individual performances and fluctuations. You know, Trey Turner most notably going from looking like he did to looking like he did. That has been a little bit more volatile. But on the whole, like this team, I feel like it's like, yeah, they're the Phillies. I kind of get them.
They're not as good as the Braves, but they're better than everybody else.
Yeah, that's it, right? It's not about the result because we're where we thought the Phillies were going to be. It's how they've gone about getting there. Like the slow start again after you bring in Trey Turner was weird. Kyle Schwarber's season's been weird. We're going to get into like the specifics of like the individuals coming up. But you guys follow everybody. You guys know what's going on in baseball as well as anybody else in this space. And I want to ask you, is Philadelphia Phillies, Atlanta Braves, NLDS collision course, is that the most interesting possible outcome for this side of the playoff bracket?
It's the only NLDS. I'm not just saying that because I'll be there. Like, if you didn't believe that before, then go watch the 7 outrageously stupid baseball games that these two teams played against one another in the past week and a half. They are all off the rails. And the Braves are such a juggernaut that the Phillies' dumb guy energy is just the perfect complement to it. Right? And so they're going to go toe-to-toe. It's going to have so many narratives with the Phillies knocking them out last year. I can't wait for it. I just hope to God that they beat whichever wild card team is in front of them.
I was just going to say, like,
don't look past it, baby.
This has been because we're for a good reason. Like, I agree with you guys. Like, it has been amazing baseball. I would like to see it too. But I hope, I feel like the degree to which I can't remember a postseason matchup talked about this far in advance for so long. Right. And I'm worried that we're going to be disappointed, but I hope it gets there. And yeah, it'll be something, because as the way when we talked about it, because Jake was there when the Braves clinched, and just why it's so exciting. It's just the star power on both sides is really kind of overwhelming in a really exciting way, but also all players that have kind of had very interesting seasons and gotten to this place in kind of a strange way.
Yeah, it's such a cool matchup, right? Because when you look at it, there are other teams more talented than the Phillies when you look at what they've done over the regular season. You might say, oh, the Dodgers match up well with the Braves. You might say, team coming out of the American League can handle them in the World Series. But there's something about the way the Phillies just play them that makes it such a tight and interesting series. Over 162, the Phillies were never going to be as good as this lineup. This Braves lineup is one of the great offensive lineups we've seen. Yeah. And the Phillies somehow find a way to just even them. The bullpen blows up, but they're still in games. Who would you guys, when you're looking at it, you're unbiased, you can say Braves. I'm sure Phillies fans, this being around the area, Jake. Philadelphia fans are not excitable at all. We're not going to get mad at you over anything. Totally calm and rational people.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
Who do you take in that series? I know wild card aside, and you got to get there, but do the Phillies have a chance to knock off the Braves in that series?
Oh, they have a chance. Yeah, of course they have a chance. I mean, to me, it just depends on which Aaron Nola shows up. That is the most important factor, because Wheeler can go toe-to-toe with Fried, and I like Suarez going toe-to-toe with Charlie Morton, and Game 4s are, I guess they wouldn't even throw it a Game 4. You really only need 3 starters in the way that the series is going to be spaced out.
Right.
But it's Nola against Strider, right? What Nola's showing up, because you dang sure know what Strider's showing up, as you've seen the last 2 starts against the Phillies, where you just can't touch the guy. So if Nola shows up looking like Aaron Nola, which he did in his most recent start, they have a good shot. However, it's hard for me to sit here and not pick the Braves. It's hard. They're better. Right?
I get that.
They're a better team. That doesn't mean that they're not going to win. And this is what really stinks about picking playoff series, right? It's you should just pick the better team every time, because that's the most likely scenario, and that's kind of a boring answer. Again, we saw the Phillies do this a year ago, so it's certainly not outside the realm of possibility, but for me, it just falls on Nola, what Nola shows up.
I got you. Jordan, you thinking the Phillies got a look in this one, or are you going Braves?
I would just say that point was the point I was going to make about my concern for the first round. We don't know who they're playing first, right? But that is, I think, based on just looking at the numbers, I know there's some people that say Wheeler's been disappointing too. I have all kinds of confidence in Zach Wheeler.
Me too.
Yeah. And I think, I imagine most Phillies fans are at, but my confidence in Wheeler is higher than his numbers, and my confidence in Nola is even lower. And I know his numbers aren't great, but he's had some starts where you think you're watching Aaron Nola. But that feels like the bigger difference. I just wrote today a little bit about the Phillies bullpen, and how I wrote today over at Fox Sports about the Phillies bullpen, and how I think my concern with them just going, as we talk about a longer postseason run, is that I don't feel as good about those starting pitchers. And so now we're asking even more out of the bullpen to kind of cover these situations, and that's how you end up in some complicated late inning situations, and who we're turning to, and not to mention the fact that one of their relief aces from last year has simply not been anywhere near as good, and Sir Anthony Dominguez. So they found some other guys like Jeff Hoffman, my guy Jeff Hoffman, who I'm
that's your boy
with my StreamYard name, and his career resurgence is shocking and very, very cool. Very happy for that guy. But man, I mean, there's Michael Lorenzen. I don't know. Jake, are you aware of I was literally going to do this on our podcast tomorrow, but since it's topical, Jake, do you know what Michael Lorenzen's ERA is since his no-hitter?
It is very high. Yeah.
It's got to be 8 something.
9.3.
Jeez.
Yeah. Should have given up some hits in that game.
Yeah.
If he gets above 10, he has to give the golden vans back.
Yeah, right. So that's the thing. So there's just versions that I think is my concern as early as whoever they're even going to face in that first round. So again, as we saw, I don't have to explain to you that the Phillies can get hot and go to the World Series, duh. But that's why that Nola thing is concerning for me against anybody. Forget about the Braves. I mean, hopefully they get there.
Yeah. And the reason that I have confidence in the group, though, is it's the same group as last year. fundamentally. I mean, I know Matt Vierling and Nick Maton are gone.
Big losses there.
Big losses.
From the vibe perspective, yeah. But, like, it's fundamentally the same group that did the exact same thing against Atlanta last year. Now, granted, and we said this when we were on Lockdown Braves earlier today, a big part of the Phillies winning that series was Max Fried throwing up in a trash can and Spencer Strider throwing 93 miles an hour. Right? Any Phillies fan, you have to admit that. That being said, the Phillies crushed them. Those games were not that close. I mean, I know the scores might have been, but there were a lot of late runs for Atlanta that made it closer than it seemed. It was still going to be even whether or not those two things happened, right? And so I see these teams in a 5-game set evenly matched, and I think it is a good thing for the Phillies that they would get them in a 5-game set. Because in a 7-game set, I would feel better about the Braves than in a 5-game set.
That's a beautiful thing. The shorter series gives the lesser team a much more opportunity to make something weird happen. So I love that. Now, I need your guys' help. I love the Philly fan base. I've been a Philadelphia fan my whole life. But they've been driving me insane this year because I've been fighting tooth and nail to drag this fan base, whether it's here on Locked On Phillies or on the radio or TV hits, tell them that the Phillies are good. And people just refuse to believe it because we're a football city and everyone sees them lose one series to somebody they shouldn't lose a series to. And they're like, this team stinks. This guy can't throw this, that. And can we get some outside perspective that this team is actually a World Series contender that's a damn good baseball team?
Of course it is, but that doesn't necessarily matter. I mean, like, you're not working with a rational group of people here. And that is with all due respect. Shouts out to Phillies fans. You all are some of the most unique people in the world, but it is not a rational situation. The hardcore fans are going to show up no matter what, and that's just how it works. And I think the crowds at the stadium this year have been spectacular as a whole. I mean, the Phillies have been selling out like Tuesday night games over the summer, which you could never have dreamed of a year ago. Right. And so that's what's so fascinating about the way the fan base is acting. It's like, these guys suck. All right, I'll meet you in the parking lot at 6:45. Right?
That's Philly fandom entirely.
Right. It's like we're 15 games above 500. Boy, do we suck. See you at the stadium. Yeah. Last year, I was in Philly for a September series. It was their final home series of the year in 2022, where Atlanta was in town. And there was no one at those games. Right. I know the attendance numbers are look higher, but this Thursday night game, 21,000 people. And then the next time they were home was game 3 of the NLDS, and the place was rocking. Yeah. Right? And the vibe switched so quickly when it was clear to people that they were in the playoffs. And that's exactly what's going to happen to the Phillies this year. They're going to show up for game 1 of the wild card, and any type of irrational negative energy is going to be out the window as long as the Phillies score first. So as I'm sure it must be exhausting for you to try and push people towards positivity, it's not worth your energy because at the end of the day, everyone's going to be feeling good when game 1 starts.
Yeah, we're definitely going to get there. I totally believe that. Let me tell you about my friends over at Sleeper. Let me get this up here for you. Yes, the MLB playoffs, they're right around the corner, which means your clock is ticking on your chance to win 100 times your cash on daily fantasy baseball. I mean, baseball's never been more exciting than it is now. Been talking with the guys of the Baseball Barbacast, Jake and Jordan, and they love where the game's at right now. And I love what the game is doing for people, especially on Sleeper, where you can bet on some of your favorite superstars over or under on home runs, hits, and all that good stuff, strikeouts, any of that. It's daily fantasy baseball with a chance for you to win 100 times your money. Basically, here's what you do. You pick a bunch of players. You can pick up to 8, and you list them all out. And you say, okay, I think Acuna is going to have over on hits. I think Ohtani is going to have over on strikeouts. I know he's not pitching right now, but you can put all these guys together, and you put them all together in basically this big combined whole parlay type thing. And, you just play in this, see if you win. You can win up to 100 times your money on Sleeper. It's a great way to play daily fantasy baseball. I love them. They're my favorite app. It's super simple to do. It takes like 2 minutes to fill out a lineup. Plus, use promo code LOCKEDON, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Go ahead and check out Sleeper, the best daily fantasy app you got available out there. Now, I'll ask you guys this, because I know I follow your content. I know you guys do baseball stuff. You great baseball minds, but you're also kind of on the fringe of the regular baseball coverers, writers, in that you guys bring it more modern. You're talking vibes. We're talking fun stuff, locker room stuff that doesn't normally exist when you look at some of the older writers that still cover the game. So
are you referring to Matt Vierling offering me a cigarette? in the locker room celebration.
I actually didn't know about that, but
okay.
Wait, which one were you in? I was there after the Braves when they clinched.
I was in both of them. Not the one in St. Louis, but I was in the Braves one, and I was in the Padres one as well.
Yeah, I didn't even realize.
It was wet, man.
Dude, it was crazy. I got in trouble because I was supposed to be doing a show at that time, and I told him I was going to have to be 30 minutes late. I'm like, I can't miss this. I get it. I'll do other radio shows, but got to be in the locker room. But where I was going with that is, where do the Phillies rank for playoff teams? Because there's other teams out there having fun when it doesn't matter. But vibe check on the team. Or is this the most fun team environment-wise? I don't really keep track of the other locker rooms around baseball, and I know you guys do. Who else are competitors for Vibe Team of the Year?
That's another thing that, of course, Jake has way more insight on this because he's seen these teams up close, not just this year, but last year too. But it is another interesting comparison with Atlanta, I would say, because while obviously Acuna is having a damn good time all the time, a lot of the rest of the Braves guys...
dude, no. Acuna, I had this perception of him too. I thought he's super quiet.
No. I want to say, so let's be clear. On the field, right? At the very least, on the field, he is having a damn good time, as he should. He's amazing.
Right.
But personality-wise, I mean, they're amazing at baseball, but up and down the lineup, I mean, Olsen, Riley, Murphy are not the most, they are not hosting Saturday Night Live anytime soon, right?
Right.
And so now Philly is certainly, as we've seen, certainly has some more weirdos, and Bryce is a fascinating version where, like, in some ways he's like so stoic, but then in other ways he's fascinating, and so he is captivating in that sense. And Bryce Harper is just such an important baseball character no matter what. Mm-hmm. And also, like, Trey Turner is an interesting personality where it's not necessarily explosive, but he's clearly happy to play along with the likes of the Stotts and the Marsh and the Bohm and the Stubbs and Schwarber, right? Like, he knows how to have a good time. So that is another interesting contrast with Atlanta. But let's be honest. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, there are other teams that have a good time. I am looking at the standings and thinking about the guys who, like, I enjoy, who seem like a bunch of weirdos. And Baltimore, I mean, hello, it's the Orioles. Like, absolutely the Orioles. And I'm not just saying, Jake's the Orioles fan here. I'm a Mariners fan. And the Mariners certainly last year, I think, had a lot more of that and have a little bit of it this year. But the Orioles are definitely the weirdos that are having as good a time as anybody, I would say.
So I'm trying to think back to last year and what was unique about the Phillies and how that mostly like the offensive group functions with one another.
Mm-hmm.
And it's two very disparate classes of players, right? You have Bryce, JT, Schwarber, Castellanos, Turner, who are all richer than anybody will ever really meet in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And they're veterans, they're multi-time All-Stars, they're dudes. And then you have, like, Bohm, Marsh, Stott, I guess Stubbs doesn't totally matter because he's played a lot. Sosa, Rojas now, like that class of players where they're young guys kind of on pre-arb deals, right?
Mm-hmm.
And on a lot of teams, you would see a clash there. But the Phillies don't have that at all. And I think there's two reasons for that. One is Kyle Schwarber, who is the best clubhouse guy in the world. Number one. He's number one. He's incredible. Yeah. He is the most approachable and relatable player in the game, and that applies to American guys, that applies to Latin guys. He is beloved in that clubhouse and every clubhouse he's ever stepped foot in. And the other thing that I think is sneaky important is Bryson Stott's relationship with Harper.
Yeah.
Because those two have known each other for such a long time, I think that kind of acts as an unspoken link between those two groups. Bryce is not exactly like hanging out in the clubhouse all the time with everybody. Right. He's not kicking it, if that makes sense. The group that's kicking it is like Bohm, Marsh, Stott, those guys. But, like, Bryce has done a great job of letting those young guys cook. And at the same time, understanding that even though he is better at baseball than Kyle Schwarber is better at leadership than Bryce Harper. And I think a younger version of Bryce Harper would not have been able to take that step back. And on this Phillies team, he leads more by example and by his game on the field, whereas Schwarber is the one putting his arm around guys and, saying stuff and creating the energy.
Yeah, I totally get that. It's such an important thing to have that like bridge in between the guys. And it's also that leadership thing is something people were worried about when Harper first came here. Like Bryce gets here and you're like, okay, we saw the guy he was in Washington. Can he become the face of a franchise and lead a team to the point where you want him to be? Because he hadn't really done that to the success he had it last year in the postseason. So that's a huge part.
Right, and like, who cares about leadership when you're hitting a 2-run home run in the ninth inning of a tie game? You know, like it's that. There was a great. I'm trying to remember what it was. We won a game. My college team won a game. Some guy hit a walk-off home run, and our coach was like, "That's great leadership." And I remember just being like, "No, it's not. Like that's just
a great swing.
It's a great swing. Like that's not what leadership is." And so Bryce is a leader by the fact that he's just incredible at the sport, right? Oh, yeah. And can I ask you something?
Yeah, what's up?
Bryce Harper's pandering to Philadelphia sports fans.
Yeah.
It is so obviously pandering.
Right.
What is the response to that?
So
are people self-aware? Can people recognize that it's pandering?
Absolutely.
And still appreciate it?
So here's how it works, right? Bryce Harper's a weird case because we've never had someone come in and be this good as like a free agent acquisition and buy in this hard, like all at the same time. Normally the guys you see that are like on the nose are either coaches, which coaches are cool, but you never really like, I love watching how Rob Thompson manages a baseball. Like, no, you can like him, but you're not like watching him game in and game out. And players who pander, it's very rare that you get someone who buys in so much and is also amazing at the game. Like if he was okay, if he was even like literally Alec Bowen, Bryson Stott, he panders this much, we're like, yeah, dude, we get it. Give it a rest. But he's just like, he does everything else right. So we're like, yeah, who cares? I want him to like us. That's why
great.
It's
great because he's clearly like doing the research to pander. It's not just, hey, where can I get a cheesesteak? You know what I mean? Like he's working for it, man.
Yeah, and that's part of the long contract and everything too. Like you see a guy come in here on a 3, 4, 5 year deal. They're kind of invested. I'm not saying like guys like Kyle Schwarber and Nick Castellanos don't care about the city, but when you make a decision to make the type of money he did and sign the length of contract he did with one city, raise a family here, like he's fully bought in and invested. Part of it is still pandering, but I do think part of it is him buying in honestly. And yeah, people have taken it better than I thought this Philadelphia fan base was going to, because we can get worked up over anything. But I want to ask you guys a little bit about some specific weird seasons before we wrap up here, getting into some individual guys and just your takes on this, because I get caught in the weeds of 162 and trying to make sense of it. The first one's the Kyle Schwarber, maybe a negative WAR with probably close to 50 home runs if he gets hot here at the end, and like what's going on. Like, what do you make of Kyle Schwarber's season, and especially out of the leadoff spot? Like, does that make sense to you guys? Would you not be batting him leadoff if you were Rob Thompson? Like, make sense of this for me.
I mean, he's pretty much compared to last year, he has an identical strikeout rate, an identical, I guess he's walked more, but like it's kind of the same season, and it's 30 points of BABIP, which is driving down the batting average to below 200 instead of 218. Leading the league in strikeouts again. Like, he is what he is. And the WAR, like, it's not that complicated. Like, you don't have to be so – this is a great example of I don't really understand why fans care what a player's WAR is, like, truly, when they're talking about – like, it's interesting, and we trust advanced metrics a lot. And I think that they do matter, and I think that they do help us compare players and value. And I think that it's not that I don't trust those, but as far as a fan of the team, like, I don't know why that would hurt my enjoyment of Kyle Schwarber at all. Like,
right, like when he hit the home run above the chop house in Atlanta, I hope to God no one was saying, but he's only at 0.5 wins. Though.
That's the thing, and like I don't even. But I think the detractors saying that too. It's like, well, you're missing the point. Like, this is just kind of a player that he is, and honestly, I mean, I don't know why I haven't looked at this before. I mean, this is a historic 3 true outcome season.
Yes, it's unbelievable.
Like, this is, I have to imagine, one of, even compared to like peak Joey Gallo, truly something. I mean, you could have said the same thing last year when he had 46 homers, 200 strikeouts, and 86 walks. Now he's got 45 homers, 200 strikeouts, and 120 walks. I mean, this is like, it is one of the weirdest seasons we've ever seen. I think if anything, one of the funny parts is I could be wrong about this. Maybe you've dug in on this, Jake. Doesn't seem to be benefiting from the shift ban. at all.
No,
and
not
there
really.
have been some, and a lot of that is he's putting more balls in the air than some of the guys like Corey Seager, some of the other left-handed hitters who have kind of seen a benefit from that. But I know he was a name that people came up like, oh, maybe actually the batting average will go up. Like, nope, it actually went down. Some of that is bad luck. But again, it doesn't matter because what is he going up there trying to do? Either take his base or hit the ball over the chop house. Like, those are two pretty good options and worth all the strikeouts for the most part.
I wrote about this dynamic recently at Fox Sports where Kyle Schwarber certainly doesn't look like what we think a leadoff hitter looks like, right? Mm-hmm. We're expecting a guy, Ronald Acuna, go steal a base. I mean, no one looks
Trey
like
Turner or something like that.
Trey Turner, right? Yeah. Exactly. And Trey did lead off for a little bit at the beginning of the year, and then it became clear that Schwarber was the right fit. And the reason I think he's such a good fit is he sees more pitches than anybody else on the team per plate appearance, right? It's around 4.5. I think he's top 8 in the league at pitches per plate appearance. Now, that's a useful thing to see a pitcher's pitches as the first batter of the game. But what makes it even better for Schwarber, he can communicate that to the rest of the team. If he was an idiot who didn't know anything about baseball and was just a field guy, and he was seeing 5 pitches a plate appearance, that's pointless if he can't explain what he saw to everyone else on the team. Right. But he is an elite explainer, communicator. So when he goes back to the dugout after a 7-pitch strikeout, and he says to Bryson Stott, another lefty, here's how it looks, here's what it's doing. That has real value. It really does. And it will never show up in any stat besides pitches per plate appearance. But I do think that's why Thompson has continued to hit him at the top of the lineup. Here's a very fun Schwarber leadoff thing. When I wrote an article about this a couple weeks ago. At that time, he had swung at the first pitch of the game 10 times, right? Mm-hmm. And he was 7 for 10 with 4 homers, 2 doubles, and a single.
That's insane.
So if you're watching the Phillies and Schwarber swings at the first pitch, buckle up.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Let me tell you about my friends over at Jase Medical, okay? The Jase case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use, and all it takes to get a Jase case is fill out a simple online form. In some cases, just jump on a quick call with one of our board-certified physicians. You'll be able to figure it out easily. Getting ongoing care from their physicians on any related questions, doctor-created, doctor-recommended, these are all the things you need to know about how important this could be to you if you find yourself in a medical emergency. You don't want to be caught unprepared. You want to be ready for everything that life throws at you. So you should be empowered to care for yourself and loved ones during the unexpected. And that's why Jase Medical offers the Jase case. And I already told you, 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use gives you a peace of mind so that you're not just hoping that you have access to medical help if something goes wrong. So go ahead and check them out. You don't want to get caught unprepared. And you can save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jase Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using code LOCKEDON at checkout on jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com, promo code LOCKEDON.
Can I also just say one more thing? Like, I'm just running some stat head searches back here for just like most walks. I mean, there's a better way to do this, but just like most walks, homers, strikeouts in a season. Mm-hmm. And, there's really only 20 or so seasons, only 20 seasons ever with 30 home runs, 180 strikeouts, and 80 walks. And do you know who 3 of them belong to?
Gotta be Kyle. Oh, Ryan. Okay. Wow. Yeah. I mean, dude, but that's the thing.
And Ryan Howard, when we think about Ryan Howard and we talk, and you pull up Ryan Howard's career and you say, wow, he was only a 14 WAR player. Who cares? Ryan Howard was amazing. Ryan Howard at his peak, I don't care how bad the contract was. Ryan Howard at his peak was just an unbelievable force. And while his bad first base defense, let alone being a DH, which he probably would have been if there was a DH in the National League, is what dragged his WAR down. Who cares? Who cares? Who has, like, beyond the contract, the memories of Ryan Howard, he was a freaking legend. He was an MVP. He was a Rookie of the Year, right? That it is.
And the only reason
Philly should know this better than anybody.
And the only reason Schwarber's WAR is that low is because he's incredibly horrible at defense. And the only reason he's had to play so much defense is because Bryce Harper got Tommy John surgery and he had to DH for a while. And so now Schwarber is more or less DHing regularly for the Phillies and will probably be the starting DH in the playoff series. Harper will be at first. Right. And so his value is completely different then.
It totally is. Yeah, it's just one of those weird things that we haven't been able to get over because we see, like you brought up, Jake, the leadoff hitter, he doesn't look like it, and everyone gets caught up on that. But it's such a cool season.
And it's an incredible, radio caller thing to complain about.
100%. Well, look how much he weighs. He's slow. He clogs up the base.
I know what Rob's doing at the top of the order. This.
No, I love it. If I had $1 every time I heard it. Well, boys, I know you've had a busy day. I want to wrap up with this because we've jumped in on a bunch of Philly stuff, but you guys have had great experiences just in your travels and what you guys have done with your work and covering the game. I'm just interested personally. I think people out there listening would be interested to know your favorite piece of content or favorite story you put out past decade or so since you guys have been doing this.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, again, if I want to go the Bryce Harper pandering route, I would say the home run derby we did at Lehigh Valley with Rhys Hoskins and Scott Kingery. Now, I know one of those ages better than others, but
Scott's having a great year down there.
He's crushing it.
Rhys had to look at his stats. Scott's
better. To say how good of a season he would be having.
It's true.
Rhys is obviously one of our favorites. So you probably know that
he's a great guy.
Oh my gosh, and who knows what I don't know what his status is right now. But anyway, I don't know. Picking just one, it's been so interesting because now we've kind of had a few different chapters of our experience together, and we've worked together for over 10 years. And so the first half was going on road trips every summer, in which case we were doing a lot of content at ballparks and on the road and stuff like that. And then the last 2 years, and especially, with COVID and now moving apart, we don't live in the same place. It's a whole lot of podcasts and it's a whole lot of writing and going to the ballpark and those experiences that Jake is describing, being in the ballpark and being at the yard, being in the clubhouse, seeing stuff like that. That's a totally different experience than Jake and I hopping on a Skype call, forget StreamYard and Zoom, a Skype call in 2014 to, record our original podcast. So it's just been all over the place in terms of the categories of stuff that we do that makes it hard to pinpoint just one, which is a total cop-out answer, and I apologize.
Yeah. No, you gave me the Rhys Hoskins home run derby. We'll count that.
I stand by
that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really proud of the Phillies coverage I did last October. I think the story I wrote when they got eliminated is one of the most proud I've ever been of anything I've written. Because it was a whole thing about how Rhys had bought a Polaroid, disposable camera and had one for each series and then had an extra one he had already bought for the parade. And how it was sitting above his head in the locker after they lost unused. And I was really proud of that. And then the other one, Jordan, the Shlomo Lipitz story. I wrote the story about the second oldest player on Team Israel's WBC team.
Oh, I read it. Shlomo's a legend.
I actually went back and reread it the other day. That's think what I'm most proud of.
Oh, and Shlomo's he's pitching right now. He's the team Israel's over in Europe competing in some European championships, and Shlomo's taking the bump again. So.
Yeah, well, hopefully Garrett Stubbs won't be there to catch him anytime soon. The Phils have a long run, but we will see. Yeah. It's going to be a fun run. It's been a fun season.
With all due respect to Garrett Stubbs, hopefully he's not catching for the Phillies either.
Yeah, that's a great. Hey, good bunt though. You need a lay down bunt late in the game. Stubbs, you'll get it done. You need some.
You'll get it done. Delivered. Stubbs will get it down for you. Go Phils.
All-time vibes guy. Well, guys, it's been awesome. Thank you so much. Again, check out Jake and I almost said Jeff Jordan. It's too many J's. I see the Jeff Hoffman.
I'm Jeff Hoffman. Hit me. Yes. Baseball Barbacast. Join us for the postseason run. Jake will be definitely seeing the Phillies at some point, so we'll be talking about them. But Connor, thank you so much for having us. This was super fun.
Of course. And you guys are going daily for the postseason, right?
Oh, yeah.
Love that. I'll be looking forward to it. Thank you, guys. It's awesome to get to talk to you. And go Phils, right?
Go Phils, baby.
Phils.
Man, that was a fun episode with the guys. Definitely make sure you check out Jake and Jordan's work on the Baseball Barbacast. I wasn't just blowing smoke when I was saying that I love their content and have been following them for years. They do an awesome job. So in addition to watching Locked On Phillies, go ahead and check out their work over there and follow them on Cespedes Family Barbecue. They're an awesome Twitter follow. Social medias are great. So go ahead and check them out. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube here on Locked On Phillies. Don't let us out of the equation too. Come on. And I know you're going to be zoned in for the Philadelphia Phillies playoff push that's going on and the playoff run to follow. So appreciate you tuning in for this episode. One more thing as well, a bit of a busy episode, so I want to make good on some sponsorships. Make sure you're checking out every Phillies game on the SiriusXM app. Just go to the SXM app, search Phillies, and you'll be able to pull up every pitch of the Phillies hometown radio broadcast of their game. So go ahead and check that out. That's all for today's episode of Locked On Phillies. A bit of a longer one, but definitely well worth it. So thanks again to the guys, and thank you for tuning in.